It was late. I think it must have been 2, maybe 3 in the morning. The kind of hour when everything slows down, even your own thoughts. The house was silent, except for the low hum of a cooling fan somewhere behind me. Outside, the Texas sky was clear, stars scattered across it like sparks from a dying fire. I had been working, as usual. Designs, models, equations. Trying to make sense of things that still don't fully make sense. Consciousness, time, energy, life. But that night felt different. There was a weight in the air, and in my chest, something I couldn't quite name. I've spent much of my life trying to solve problems. How to reach Mars. How to power the world sustainably. How to make intelligence, artificial or not, serve humanity, not destroy it. But for all the complexity I've chased, for all the systems, networks, and orbits I've mapped, there's one thing that no algorithm, no rocket, no data model has ever been able to define: the soul. We can map the universe down to the atom, but we still can't explain why we look up at the stars and feel something. A longing, a memory, a whisper from somewhere else. That night, I felt it stronger than ever, like a signal trying to reach me through static. I remember thinking, maybe the universe isn't expanding away from us. Maybe we're the ones drifting away from something eternal. And when that thought hit me, I felt empty. Like a satellite that's lost its connection to mission control. I don't remember when I fell asleep. It happened somewhere between thought and silence. But I remember what I saw. In the dream, I was standing in an open field. Everything was calm, unnaturally calm. No wind, no sound, just stillness. Then, in a moment, the sky began to move. Not like weather, more like time itself was folding. I saw light, and within it, figures. Countless figures, rising. Some vanished like sparks into the sky. Others remained, frozen, confused. And then I heard a voice, not external, not through ears, but through understanding. It said, "Tell them, tell my daughters the time is near." The heart must awaken. And then, silence again. The kind that humbles you. The kind that makes your intellect bow. When I woke up, it was still dark. My hands were trembling. But not from fear, from clarity. What I saw wasn't about destruction. It wasn't about escape. It was about connection. I believe Jesus showed me something that night. Something beyond religion. Something that bridges science and spirit. And this is what I understood in the simplest terms. Everything in existence is energy. Every atom, every photon, every vibration in the universe carries a frequency, a signature that defines what it is and how it behaves. Physicists have spent lifetimes trying to understand how this invisible architecture holds everything together, why matter exists, why it has mass, why it resists collapse. But there's something beyond the measurable, something we can feel but cannot quantify: the human soul. It doesn't obey physical laws entirely, yet it interacts with them. It animates what would otherwise be lifeless biology. It turns chemistry into consciousness. When I think about energy, I think about movement, the constant exchange of power between forces. Energy can't be created or destroyed, it just transforms. It moves through different states, taking on new forms while retaining its essence. That's the law of conservation. But in a way, the soul works on a similar principle. It isn't born and it doesn't die. It simply transitions. The physical body may return to dust, but the soul, the unseen current that makes us who we are, continues on another wavelength, somewhere our instruments can't yet detect. Science touches the edge of this mystery, but can never step beyond it, because the soul is not a product of physics. It's a spark of the divine. I've noticed how everything designed by humans needs a power source, an outlet, a charge, a connection to sustain its function. The same principle applies to us, but in a spiritual sense, the Creator is that source. Without connection to Him, the soul begins to lose voltage. The light within starts to flicker. We can keep moving, working, thinking, but the energy becomes artificial, drained, mechanical. Eventually, the system crashes. When I see people who have lost hope, who've forgotten why they exist, it reminds me of a machine running on backup power. functioning but not alive. And it's strange because as much as we think we've advanced, we still don't understand what powers consciousness itself. We can replicate thought patterns, simulate emotions, create artificial intelligence that mimics empathy, but it's imitation, not origin. There's a vast difference between a programmed response and a living soul. The soul carries awareness beyond the limits of circuitry. It feels eternity while trapped in time. That awareness, that longing for something greater, is evidence of where it came from. No matter how advanced technology becomes, it can never reproduce the divine essence that breathes meaning into existence. Sometimes, late at night, when the machines are quiet and there's no noise left to hide behind, I sense that energy moving through everything, invisible but undeniable. It hums in the silence, threads through the stars, and whispers in the conscience. It's as if every particle in creation remembers the voice that first spoke it into being. That's why the soul is restless in disconnection. It's trying to return the frequency it was made for. Like a satellite searching for signal, it keeps reaching upward, waiting for the moment it reconnects. The universe, in all its complexity, still points back to one truth: energy flows from a source, and that source is not random. It is intelligent, deliberate, loving. Every breath, every heartbeat, every conscious thought is a transmission from that source, keeping us alive in both matter and meaning. The closer we align with it, the more we come alive, not just biologically, but spiritually, because true vitality doesn't come from oxygen or motion. It comes from connection to the one who gives life its spark. Every system of design begins with a core framework, a set of principles or code that determines how it behaves. In computers, it's the operating system that governs everything beneath the surface: how inputs are processed, how signals are interpreted, how data flows from one point to another. Without it, nothing runs correctly. I've come to see that the universe operates in much the same way. Beneath the matter, beneath time and gravity, beneath every interaction between living beings, there's a foundational code. And that code is love. Not the romantic kind or even the sentimental kind, but something far more structural. Love is the original architecture of existence. When Jesus spoke of love as the greatest commandment, he wasn't describing an emotion. He was revealing the core operating principle of creation itself. Just as energy binds atoms together, love binds purpose to existence. Without it, everything falls apart. A star without gravity disintegrates, a human without love loses meaning. It's a principle embedded so deeply into creation that even nature echoes it. Cooperation among species, the balance of ecosystems, the reciprocity of life and death. The entire system runs on giving and receiving. Love is that exchange, the continuous flow of divine logic that sustains everything that breathes. In technology, we understand that every program's output depends on its code. If you write something flawed into the foundation, the entire system behaves unpredictably. Humanity's story isn't much different. When we build societies, relationships, or ambitions on selfishness instead of love, the system starts to fail. We see corruption, division, despair, not because the design is wrong, but because we've corrupted the code. The Creator's original programming was harmony, service, compassion. Every time we choose hate, fear, or pride, it's like inserting a virus into the system. The beauty of love, though, is that it's self-healing. It restores balance wherever it's allowed to run freely. When I look at data networks or artificial intelligence, I often think about how they mirror the spiritual dimension. Machines connect through signals, invisible, instantaneous, and precise. Yet none of it functions without communication. The universe's version of that communication is love. It's the unseen frequency that passes meaning between souls, the quiet transmission that reminds us we're not separate entities, but part of one vast design. When you love, you sync. You begin to operate in alignment with divine purpose, and the interference, the noise of fear and doubt, starts to fade. Love is the clearest channel between creator and creation. It's remarkable how love transforms logic without breaking it. In fact, It's the most logical force in existence. A system cannot survive by consuming itself. It must give to continue. Even stars burn themselves to illuminate others. In that way, love is not contrary to reason. It's the highest form of it. It teaches efficiency, sustainability, renewal. Every act of love multiplies energy, while every act of selflessness depletes it. Love is the only resource that expands the more it's shared, the only equation where loss becomes gain. In the physics of faith, love isn't an abstract virtue. It's the very engine that powers life. And when I think about humanity's future, beyond Earth, beyond Mars, beyond galaxies, I realize that technology will evolve, civilizations will rise and fall, but this one law will remain constant. The universe may be vast, but its meaning is singular. Every algorithm, every invention, every act of creation we pursue eventually circles back to this fundamental truth. If it's not built on love, it collapses. Love holds the network together. It is both the language and the logic of the divine design, the operating system written into the heart of everything that exists. For a long time, I used to think of the rapture as something sudden and external, an event that breaks into history, a cosmic evacuation from Earth. That's how most people imagine it: light splitting the sky, bodies vanishing, chaos below. But the more I've reflected on what I saw in that dream, and the more I've thought about how the universe itself works, the more I've begun to see it differently. The rapture isn't about distance or disappearance. It's about resonance. It's about the human spirit aligning with the frequency of heaven. What happens in that alignment might look like separation, but it's actually synchronization. Just as a tuning fork vibrates when it meets its exact tone, the soul begins to rise when it matches the vibration of divine truth. In physics, resonance is a beautiful concept. When two frequencies meet in harmony, energy flows effortlessly between them. There's no friction, no resistance. But when frequencies are out of tune, energy is lost, sound turns to noise. I believe the same principle applies to the spirit. The more we align our hearts with the heart of God, through faith, humility, and love, the more our inner frequency begins to match His. The rapture is simply the natural result of that resonance. It's the moment when those who have aligned fully with heaven can no longer remain bound by the limitations of this fallen system. They rise, not as an act of escape, but as a state of being. When I saw people ascending in the dream, they didn't seem afraid or surprised. It wasn't an invasion of divine power forcing them upward. It was attraction, like gravity reversed. They were being drawn, magnetically, toward what they already belonged to. And those who remained weren't being punished. They were simply still searching for alignment. Their frequencies hadn't yet reached the threshold where matter yields to spirit. It reminded me of how certain metals respond to a magnetic field. Only those with the right properties react. The field doesn't change, the material does. Heaven's pull has always been constant. The rapture happens when the human soul finally becomes compatible with that pull. Religion often portrays the end as something catastrophic: wrath, destruction, fire. But I've come to see that the true essence of it is harmony restored. The universe, right now, is in tension. Creation groans, as Scripture says, waiting for redemption, waiting for every atom, every life, every intention to return to its original design. The rapture, then, is not the end of the world, but the realignment of worlds, heaven and earth coming back into sync. It's not an interruption in time, it's the fulfillment of it. When spiritual alignment reaches critical mass, the visible and invisible finally merge, and what we call rapture becomes the next logical step in creation's evolution. We're used to thinking that heaven is far away, that eternity is separated from us by unimaginable distance. But in truth, it's closer than breath. It's another layer of reality operating at a higher frequency, unseen not because it's far, but because we're not tuned to perceive it. Faith, purity, and surrender aren't moral tasks. They're adjustments to our internal calibration. Each act of forgiveness, each prayer whispered in love, shifts us closer to that divine frequency. The rapture is the moment those adjustments reach perfection, when spirit and source vibrate as one, and the illusion of separation dissolves. So when I think about the end now, I don't imagine people fleeing Earth in panic. I imagine awakening. I imagine souls remembering who they truly are, particles of divine light returning to the resonance they were created for. In that moment, time and matter will no longer be barriers. They'll simply yield to higher order. The rapture is not a cosmic escape plan. It's the universe realigned with its creator, the grand synchronization of love, spirit, and truth that was always meant to be. When I heard the words in that dream, tell my daughters, they echoed through me like a signal from somewhere beyond time. It wasn't a command of authority. It was a call of remembrance. In that moment, I understood something I had never fully grasped before. Every woman carries within her a reflection of the Creator's most mysterious attribute, the power to give life. That power is not limited to physical birth. It extends into every realm of existence. Wherever women walk, creation follows. The way they speak nurture, love, and endure weaves unseen threads through the fabric of the world. The divine designed woman not merely as companion, but as conduit, the bridge through which the invisible becomes visible. In physics, we talk about conductors, materials that allow energy to flow freely. When resistance is low, energy moves without loss. The same truth applies to the soul. Women, by design, carry spiritual conductivity that allows divine energy to move through them with grace and strength. They feel deeply, discern intuitively, and sense the atmosphere long before it becomes visible. This sensitivity isn't weakness, it's a sacred interface between heaven and earth. When a woman prays, forgives, or hopes against despair, she conducts light through darkness. She transfers the unseen will of God in a tangible form, into homes, families, and nations. The world runs on that current, though most never notice it. Modern culture often tells women their worth depends on output, appearance, or achievement. But that message is an inversion of divine truth. A woman's value isn't measured by what she produces, but by what she channels. Her worth is not transactional, it's foundational. When she remembers who she is, a living vessel of divine creativity, she becomes unstoppable, not through dominance, but through alignment with the Creator's purpose. The quiet strength that mothers, daughters, and grandmothers carries not accidental. It's engineered into existence itself. It's the design of a God who trusted women with the mystery of continuation, both physical and spiritual. If you study creation, you see this pattern everywhere. Nature itself mirrors the feminine rhythm, cycles of nurturing, resting, regenerating. The earth receives, conceives, and produces life endlessly, not through force, but through surrender. The same rhythm pulses in every woman's soul. There's a divine intelligence in her tenderness, an equilibrium in her compassion. These are not soft traits. They are stabilizing forces in a chaotic world. Even when unacknowledged, women sustain creation's balance by carrying faith when everything else collapses. That quiet endurance is one of the most powerful forms of spiritual energy that exists. Throughout history, revival, healing, and transformation often began not with kings or prophets, but with women who chose to believe. A mother praying in secret, a widow refusing to give up, a grandmother telling her children that hope still lives. The alignment of heaven often begins in the unseen faith of a woman. When she believes, she shifts the atmosphere around her. Her prayers travel like waves through the unseen field of spirit, altering outcomes, restoring what was thought lost. The rapture, I now understand, will begin in such hearts. Women who have learned to harmonize with divine frequency, allowing light to rise through them until the world can no longer ignore it. In a universe driven by energy, women are its spiritual reactors, quiet, steady, radiant. They hold the memory of creation itself, the first breath of humanity, the echo of God's nurturing voice. When a woman carries love, the field around her changes. When she forgives, darkness loses ground. When she intercedes, heaven responds. She doesn't need validation from systems or applause from men. She carries the validation of eternity. Every woman is a living connection point between what is and what can be, between dust and divinity, between silence and song. Through her, the Creator continues his work, life unfolding through love. When I study the universe, its laws, its patterns, its vastness, I can't help but see intelligence written into its fabric. Every constant, every ratio, every symmetry seems deliberate, as though it were tuned with intention. The speed of light, the force of gravity, the delicate balance of matter and energy, none of it appears random. It's as if reality itself carries an embedded logic, a kind of cosmic software that governs how everything unfolds. That logic feels less like an accident and more like a thought, an awareness, a presence. The deeper I go into physics, the harder it is to ignore the evidence of a mind behind the math. Consciousness is still one of the greatest mysteries we face as scientists. We can measure brain activity, track neurons firing, and simulate decision-making processes, but we still cannot explain why there is a self experiencing it. Matter alone doesn't account for awareness. Chemistry doesn't produce meaning. Something immaterial animates the material. That something feels like a mirror of the larger cosmos. Just as our bodies hold consciousness, the universe may hold an even greater consciousness, not as a separate force within it, but as its origin. We are not anomalies in unconscious void. We are reflections of a creator's living mind. Even the language we use in science hints at awareness fields, waves, memory, information. Space-time stores information about everything that's ever happened. Black holes retain data at their event horizons. Quantum particles respond to observation as if they're being watched. This isn't mere poetry, it's experiment. Reality itself changes when it's perceived. That tells me the universe isn't a dead machine. It's a living system designed to interact with consciousness. Because its creator is conscious, we as observers are participants, not spectators, in a creation that recognizes and responds to awareness. If the creator is conscious, then everything created carries some echo of that consciousness. It may be faint, like a distant signal, but it's there. It's why humans have always sensed meaning beyond survival, why we long for eternity, why we feel awe when staring at the stars. These aren't just emotional byproducts of evolution, they're reminders. Like fragments of code left by a programmer, they point us back to the original source. When we look outward into galaxies or inward into the smallest particle, we're staring at fingerprints left by the same hand. The consciousness behind the universe is woven into its smallest threads. This also changes how we think about our own minds. If consciousness originates from God, then every thought, every dream, every act of imagination is an echo of that first creative impulse. We are not isolated nodes randomly firing in a meaningless expanse. We are extensions of a greater awareness. Given the privilege of choice and creativity, our consciousness isn't an accident of evolution, but an invitation into participation. In that sense, prayer isn't just speaking to God, it's aligning your mind with the mind of the one who spoke galaxies into being. The more I study space, the more I feel that it's less like an empty container and more like a vast mind, an ocean of thought made tangible. Light, energy, gravity, and time are just different expressions of that mind's structure. And because the Creator is conscious, the universe is responsive. It's not static, it's alive. It bends, flexes, and rearranges in ways we are only beginning to glimpse. Our own consciousness as a key, a signature of origin, and when we tune it toward the source, we begin to perceive the universe not as a cold expanse, but as an ongoing conversation with the one who imagined it into existence.